In the plane, man, you have to have the mask and the face shield on like the whole time. Like,
No, you don't. Not if you fly Egyptian Airways. I didn't have to wear a mask at all.
really?
Right. Egyptian Airways is the best because they just don't care.
I was about to say, is it more controlled? But
all the other airways, you'll be choking the whole way.
No, I think PIA will be the same because they don't care either.
All right. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم أرنا الأشياء كما هي اللهم ربنا زدنا علما. All right, tonight's class I'm going to start off with, I was requested to deal some more with the obvious signs, and then we'll end with Isa, the greatest sign of all. Some of you may have heard that some of these signs, if you see them, that you can't make Tawbah. I would question the meaning of such hadiths, okay? Because the Quran says you can make Tawbah all the way up until you're dead. So a hadith can't contradict the Quran. So basically my point I'm trying to make is that since so many of the signs that we're dealing with are mutashabihat, they're not like clear and obvious, one cannot expect Allah being so merciful to not forgive people who don't notice, for example, that when the sun is rising from the west, and believe me guys, I live here in Egypt, the people here, unfortunately, I mean, not all of them, but many of them, they worship the West. They all want to be Canadians, they all want to be Americans, they all want to be British, they all want to be French. Even the local school I send my child to, because it's the only one we can find that doesn't force you to vaccinate your children, it's Muslims with hijab, and they make salat, but they're teaching my son about Christmas. He's forgotten the Arabic alphabet. He doesn't even remember the surah that we taught him back in America. Like, this is how Islamic we are. People here worship the West. So if the sun isn't literally going to rise from the west, then one can't expect a person not to be forgiven for not understanding that. Okay? But there are signs amongst the major signs that are going to literally be fulfilled. And one of them is tonight's, which is the descent of Isa alayhi salam. Okay? When that one happens, I do believe you will not be able to, your faith in that event will no longer be valid, because it's going to be so clear and so obvious to everybody that there's no iman to have anymore. Like, it'll just be like in your face. So you'll have to believe in Isa at that point, but your faith won't benefit you. Okay? Because he'll be right there in front of your face. There's nothing to believe in anymore. He's right there. But most of the signs, I would say, are mutashabihat. They have to be interpreted. Okay? So without further ado, I don't want to talk too much about this subject. I want to go ahead and start showing you tonight's program. Okay, so we'll go through a couple of obvious ones real quick. So the Prophet ﷺ said there are two dissidents or groups of the hellfire whom I did not see, okay, meaning he didn't see them in his own lifetime, but he saw them during Isra wal Mi'raj, okay? Wallahu a'lam. And there are people who they have whips like cow tails. يَضْرِبُونَهَا النَّاسِ. They beat people with them. And women who would be dressed but appeared to be naked, okay? And who would who would be inclined to evil and make their husbands inclined towards it. And their heads would be like humps, like the Bactrian camels of Iran. And they would incline to one side. And they would not enter paradise. And they would not even smell its scent, even though its scent can be smelled from a very far distance. So I'm sure every man here tonight has seen this before. These are leggings. This was something that was not even around prior to, I would say, the 1960s. There is literally, guys, no difference between this clothing and if I took a paintbrush and I painted the same colors onto a mannequin like this. All these mannequins and these are real people. These are all mannequins. So don't say, Astaghfirullah, Imam Isa, why are you showing us this? These are all plastic, okay? But that's how tight these clothes are. Like there's no crack or crevice, as you can obviously see on this mannequin here on the far right, of a woman's body that you can't see. And wallahi al-azim, guys, if you haven't noticed, I have seen these on every single type of woman there is, from little children who are like 2 and 3 years old up until like 80 and 90-year-old women. I'm not lying to you. I have seen these clothes on every single age group. This is exactly, Allahu A'lam, what the Prophet was talking about. They have, if you ask them, if you walk up to any of them and you say, are you wearing clothes? They're going to look at you like, you idiot, of course I'm wearing clothes. Can't you see that I have clothes on? But at the same time, there's really nothing left to the imagination about what they're wearing. Like literally there's nothing that you can't see. Okay, other than, I guess, maybe the actual private part itself. And this could also be the really short, skimpy clothes that you see on some women, like where, practically all of their chest is hanging out except for the very tips of them, and then the skirts and stuff that are so high up on them that every single part of their leg is hanging out. But I really think this fits the description the Prophet was talking about also. And if you notice, the type of women who wear these are almost always misguided. And unfortunately, guys, I hate to tell you this, but being that I've been to what's it called? Jordan. I've been to Egypt now. I've been to one other Arab country. Basically, you see the Muslim women wearing these things too, which is a real shame. They'll have a headscarf on and then they'll be wearing this garbage. So here you have a pretty obvious sign of the Prophet ﷺ. And women who wear these type of clothes, they don't understand, they're misleading other women because they don't understand how they appear to men. Because women don't look at other women and find like pleasure and enjoyment from looking at them. Just like me and you don't look at other guys and we're like, hey, that's a good looking guy. Like we don't interact that way. We're not attracted to guys. So women don't understand what they're doing when they walk out in public like that. They're basically, it's kind of like in nature, you have like certain animals will display themselves in a certain way to let the opposite gender know that they're ready for mating, right? Or they'll give off a certain scent, or they'll make a certain sound, or, to let them know it's mating season. Okay. Well, when a woman dresses that way, she's basically telling a man's reproductive system to come on. Okay. Because those are the things, men are visually aroused. So when men see certain shapes and things like that, they snap into that mentality. And it's not that we're something wrong with us. That's how we're made. Right. So seeing a woman's body is one of the things that'll turn your reproductive system on when you didn't intend to have it on at all, right? So the Prophet ﷺ mentions, from my followers, there will be those who consider zina to be halal, wearing silk, drinking alcohol and wine and musical instruments, all as being lawful, okay? And Allah will destroy these people and he will turn them into pigs and monkeys, in another hadith. I'm sorry, at the bottom it says, He will transform them into monkeys and pigs, and they will remain so until the day of judgment. So you guys have all seen these rock musicians. There's literally a rock band called Silk. I'm not even joking. Let's see if I can find a better picture of them. But there's lots and lots and lots of these rock bands. You notice they all have something in common, which is sex, drugs, and rock and roll, which is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ was talking about. He said that they'll make wearing silk, like fancy clothing, intoxicants, which drugs and khamr are all the same thing, really. They intoxicate your intellect. Zina, right, having sex outside of marriage, to all be like permissible and you should do them. Now he mentions they're from his ummah, and we'll get to that in a second, but I just want you to understand where this mentality comes from, okay? Where the Muslims get it from. They're getting it from the entertainment world, okay? So I sent you all this picture on WhatsApp. This is a rock band I used to listen to called Tool, okay? Their drummer here on the left, his name is Danny Carey. He's a very famous drummer, very talented guy, but he is an occultist. There are videos of him on YouTube recording one of Tool's albums, and behind him is a pentagram, inverted pentagram. He is a huge fan and follower of Aleister Crowley, who is considered to be the most wicked man in history. Aleister Crowley was a Satanist. Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons contacted the Antichrist. Aleister Crowley did a lot of things. But what I want you to understand is how influential this person is. Aleister Crowley, if you haven't heard of him, it's quite surprising to me because he's so famous. He's influenced so many people in the entertainment business. Some of the most famous musicians you've ever heard of have all been fans of Aleister Crowley. Now that should tell you something. When the entire entertainment business, and I'm not talking about just music, I'm talking about film as well, has been influenced by this guy. Like how much this Hollywood, by the way, Hollywood is the holly stick that you take from a holly tree that the magician, the sahir, uses to cast his spell. Like, I'm not even joking with you guys. So when they name it Hollywood, they're telling you they're casting spells on people, or they're casting sihr on someone. So I wanted you to see this particular photo because this was early in their career. This is each of the 5 of them holding a piece of a string to create a pentagram, which is very important in ritual magic for attracting shayateen, okay? And they're holding it over this one eye, okay, that they've created with candles. Now, do these people know what they're doing as far as are they, intentionally trying to contact the Antichrist? Do they know the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad? Allahu Alam, I don't know that stuff. But I can tell you that's exactly what they're doing. This band became extremely famous, has influenced too many people. Even when I used to play in rock music, I was very influenced by this band. I saw them in concert multiple times. Watching them in concert is like unbelievable how mesmerizing the show is because they're literally calling demons into the concert. Now, granted, I did all this stuff before I was Muslim, but I would never go listen to them now. I consider their music to be evil. But that's because I'm a believer. And if I wasn't a believer, I wouldn't care. But I believe that they have a profoundly negative impact on your iman to listen to their music. But they're just one of many bands influenced by them. So this is just an article about Aleister Crowley's influence. I just want to show you some of the musicians that's him right there. Look at what's on his head, the triangle with the eye inside of it. Aleister Crowley was a self-aggrandizing occultist from the puritanical Christian family who developed a thirst for outraging others early on. So he rebelled against his Christian upbringing and became like the exact opposite. By the way, I had a friend in high school who did the exact same thing. He ended up starting this group called the Ordo Templo Orientis, or OTO. He was very involved in Freemasonry. But anyway, just to mention here, pop messiahs of the age ushered in the return of the beast. Crowley appears on Peter Blake's cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This is probably one of their most famous records the Beatles ever wrote. And they have a picture of Aleister Crowley on the cover of the album, amongst other people that they consider have influenced them. The Doors, very famous band in the 1960s and 70s. Their singer died of an overdose, I think. Mick Jagger, who's the singer of probably the most famous rock band ever, the Rolling Stones, after Rolling Stone magazine, which is named after him, his band. Very involved in the occult, and even had very just openly satanic movies that he was involved in the early 60s and 70s. He wrote a song called Sympathy for the Devil. Also David Bowie, very influenced by Aleister Crowley. The rock band's Led Zeppelin, the rock band Black Sabbath. Guys, Black Sabbath and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin have influenced every single rock musician that even plays today, without exception. All of them have been influenced by at least one of those three bands. The whole idea of the boy band comes from the Beatles. Okay. So when we see Muslim boy band, we find exactly what the Prophet ﷺ was talking about, which is, whether these guys realize it or not, they're literally taking the style and music and imitating these kuffar. I mean, that's the only way to describe it. I think this is one of the main guys, or one of you guys tell me the name of that band that has the famous music, Muslim guy. He's like the head of it. It's like a boy band. What are they called?
There's an actual boy band of Muslims?
Well, one of their main guys is a Muslim. He quit the band though and did it like a solo career, but I just don't remember his name. Zaid or Zayn or something like that. Zayn Maher, is that his name?
Maher Zain.
Yeah, Maher Zain. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean, that these people are highly influenced by an industry of demonic things. Is this the guy? Maybe, no, that's not him.
No, I don't think it's Matt. It's the One Direction band.
Yeah, One Direction. That's it.
Oh, yeah. His name is
Zayn Malik. Yeah, there you go.
Name? Yeah.
So this is exactly what I'm talking about, guys. I mean, this person is coming right out of an industry of like Satanists. When I tell you the entertainment business is run and operated by Satanists, guys, I'm not joking at all. It's not hyperbole. Like, these people believe. I mean, look at this band. I'm not joking with you. You don't do stuff like that for fun. Okay? You do stuff like that because you really believe in this. You know what I mean? Just like you don't pray 5 times a day for fun. You pray 5 times a day because you really believe in Islam. Okay? You know, you're not going to waste all that time lighting all those candles and arranging them and trying to hold these strings in a certain way. And, you know, would be a waste of your time. Like, you could go be doing something entertaining, playing basketball or whatever. These people do what they do because they're trying to attract shayateen into their life for power and influence. And why are you going to put a satanic pentagram behind your drum set while you record an album? Why? I mean, it doesn't even make any sense. It's not adding to the sound of your drums. In fact, the engineer who did the recording probably didn't even like that it was there, because it probably made it difficult for him to mix the record properly, because the sound's bouncing off this giant pentagram that's behind the drummer. But yet he did it. Why? You know, these are questions that people need to answer. I know the answer, because he's trying to attract a certain energy into what he's doing. He wants the shayateen to assist him. He's a occult magician. So this is a very interesting hadith. Probably one of my favorite ones. Fitan will be exposed to the hearts of people like a reed woven mat, stick by stick or line by line, meaning reed by reed. Any heart afflicted by them will have a black mark put onto it. Okay? But any heart that rejects them will have a white mark put onto it. Thus, there will be two kinds of hearts. One is pure, like a white gemstone, and it will not be harmed by any fitna as long as the heavens and the earth endure. The other will be black and dusty and like a worn-out vessel, neither acknowledging good nor rejecting evil, rather absorbed in its desires. Okay, so I want to show you guys what a reed woven mat looks like. Okay, so you understand. If you came to my youth program earlier this year, you already know my particular interpretation of this hadith. So this is a reed woven mat, okay? Take notice. It's horizontal and vertical weaves, okay? So one weave goes under, then it goes above. And if you're really talented at it, you can create an image with it, okay? Or you can dye the individual squares that are produced when you do that and create an image, okay? Or see how there's a pattern here? Someone who's very talented, they did a reed woven mat, and that's what it made. Okay? You guys understand now? Now, Matt, what's wrong? What's wrong? Give me 1 second, guys. I gotta deal with my son for a second. Okay, sorry about that. So watch this quick video.
Digital cellular phones and the internet have been revolutionary and continues to bring forward new methods of doing things in all fields. The
You
discovery
guys hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
of new technologies are accompanied by a learning experience that require us to operate and experiment with the newly discovered. We distinguish and identify what we see in the world around us and the objects we interact with by means of colors, lighting, and size. Interacting with and understanding digital media requires the same approach. The main interface between man and computer are a display screen that shows binary code in a language that we can understand. Numerous displays, such as those of smartphones, computers, and TVs, make use of pixels. In
Okay,
1960,
did you hear that? So what he's explaining to you is that there was an invention, okay, that allowed digital information to be transferred into visual information. And he shows you the main three ways today we have it, okay? Televisions, computer screens, and smartphones.
Fred C. Billingsley published an article which was the first official
Be interested to see if this guy's involved in the occult.
introduction of the word pixel. Today the term is used in the areas of digital displays, computer graphics, cameras and printers, with a definition that is somewhat clashing. The term pixel is derived from picture element, and from here on further is in reference to the smallest distinct element of a picture represented on a digital display. Each individual pixel is made up of a red, green and blue section, also known as RGB. Only one color is seen at a time, which is due to the very small size of a pixel from the viewer's point of view.
So he's explaining that every screen you see, digital screen, is made up of really small squares that are allowed to be a variation of 3 different colors: red, green, and blue. Okay.
If you look at a pixel from very close, such as in a close-up photograph or magnifying glass, it is clearly evident that it's composed of 3 colors. All 3 of the colors can be varied in intensity to provide different colors. Almost any color can be created, with each of the respective main colors being variable between 0 and 255, with each number representing a slight variation of the color. With all 3 colors set to 255, white is the resulting color, and when each color's RGB value is changed to 0, black is the resulting color. Combining the possible variations of each color is 255 to the power of 3, which results in over 16.5 million colors.
So basically, with just one pixel, you can create any of 16.5 million colors. Now, depending on how many pixels you have on your screen, you can have any number of possibilities in terms of what you're displaying on the screen.
A bit can be represented as 2 to the power of 1, with the RGB value ranging from 0 to 255. With 0 inclusive, there is 256 possibilities, and this equals 2 to the power of 8. Each main color value is represented by 8 bits or 1 byte. Videos, images, and programs stores the
Go tomorrow, please.
RGB values of each pixel in binary code, and the appropriate color is then displayed and made visible to the viewer. Understanding how individual pixels work makes it simple to understand how an image is displayed on a screen. Screens are composed of large amounts of pixels, and exact numbers are indicated by the resolution. Let's take a 4K display. It has a resolution of 4096 by 2160 pixels, meaning there is 4096 columns and 2160 rows of pixels, and the product of these values are the total number of pixels in the raster. This equals 8.85 million pixels. Apart from the resolution, digital screens possess a property known as pixel density, which is commonly measured in pixels per inch (ppi) or dots per inch (dpi). It is easily comparable when considering a computer monitor and smartphone, both with a resolution of 1920
Right, I think
by
you all
1080.
get it. The point I'm trying to make with all this is that this is the same concept of the reeds, okay? If you know how to weave them properly, you can create an image, okay? If you know how to arrange the pixels properly, you can create, and you guys are all looking at, an image on your screen. That image is not real. It's not real. You're not really looking at anything. You're not really looking at my face right now. You're looking at a digital representation, okay, of just a bunch of numbers telling a bunch of pixels which color to be. And then that's moving so fast that your eye sees it as real, like moving. Same thing with my voice. You're not even hearing my voice right now. You're just hearing a bunch of numbers that are being sent into a speaker at different amplitude levels to reproduce the sound of my voice. You're not hearing my voice at all. So what I'm trying to say is, this is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about. He says that tribulations, trials will be shown to the hearts of people like, he didn't say it will be shown to them as a reed woven mat. He said like a reed woven mat, line by line, horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, so he's saying hearts will be affected by them. Okay, you guys ever heard the hadith that people will be having sexual intercourse in public like donkeys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what does that mean? That means that they'll be doing it so that the public can see it. That's the meaning. They will be doing it like the public will have access to it. And that's exactly what's happened today, is that people doing this on your computer screens where it's publicly accessible. Anyone can watch it, just like people walking in the streets. To the extent now that 98% of men are watching this garbage on their screens. And I hope none of you are. If you are, then you need to stop doing that. So this is fitna, okay? This is fitna. And anyone who looks at the reed woven mat, okay, which I'm comparing here to the pixels, it will scar your heart permanently. Why is that? Because you cannot get these images out of your head. Like once you've seen the torture scene in the movie or the inappropriate relationship on film or any of this other stuff, you will never be able to get those things out of your head. They permanently change who you are on the inside. Okay. So that's why it damages you to watch what's on the mat. As long as you avoid the mat altogether, okay, or you avoid the evil that it can do, it'll help you. Give me 1 second, guys. Sweetheart, can you please get Muhammad and Ahmed?
Okay. I'm gonna take Muhammad right now, then.
Okay. So notice all of these things are connected. But if we just read these things literally, then we'll be sitting around the rest of our lives waiting for these things to happen. Like we have to wait for a literal reed woven mat to come and show us things that are going to destroy our spiritual hearts. We have to literally wait for a woman to walk by who has clothes on but doesn't have clothes on at the same time. We have to literally wait until we see people like donkeys in public. No, all of these things are happening right in front of your face is what I'm trying to say, guys. It's clear as day, but you have to interpret these things. And it doesn't take a wild imagination to see what's going on. Just like when I was explaining to you guys how the people having intercourse in public like donkeys is, you don't have to wait for people to actually do that in the streets. It's already happening because of internet pornography. Anyone from a 3-year-old child up until a 90-year-old adult can access this stuff on their phone. It's freely available for everyone on earth today to see. In other words, people are having intercourse in a way that the entire public can see it anytime they want. So
Sheikh,
these are,
it's funny that you say that, because I just realized that like it being online is actually much more public than if it were actually in front of you, because
bingo!
a lot more people can see it.
Yeah, anytime they want. Anytime they want. I mean, guys, it's already happened. And what imam will say this from the minbar? You know, and point it out to them, because it's just like, subhanAllah, here it is. We're seeing it. All of this stuff is connected to Dajjal, guys. All of the fitna. What is Dajjal's main weapon that he's manipulating the minds of people with today? It is this screen. This screen is being used to brainwash people, right? What is the main weapon he's using to destroy the families? It's the pornography and the women dressed and are naked. Why are so many women in the hellfire? Because they're brainwashed by these screens to dress like they are in public. You know, I mean, I'm telling you, Dajjal, the reason Dajjal's fitna is so great is because he encompasses all of the fitan. He's using all of these things to destroy people's afterlife. That's essentially what he's doing. He's getting you to follow a path of sin that's going to end in your damnation in the afterlife. And that's why he doesn't have to be here as a physical person to destroy you. All you have to do is use his tools that he's given you. And he's got, you know, the Prophet said that the last people that come out to Dajjal will be the women. And that they make up the majority of the hellfire, because they're being attacked specifically and they don't realize it. They think that you're an oppressive, evil man because you want them to dress modestly in public, right? And that has nothing to do with you being an oppressive, evil person. You want them to go to Jannah. you want them to have a good relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But no, you're a bad, evil guy because you're an oppressor and you're part of an oppressive system of male dominance. You see, this is what Dajjal has done to them, to the extent that the Prophet said they'll become so brainwashed that a man will literally tie down his wife and daughter physically restrain them. To keep them away from Dajjal, he'll come home and they'll have broken away from their restraints and gone out to Dajjal. And I've seen it, wallahi, with my own eyes. Like marriage is destroyed, all because of this brainwashing that's been done to women over the last 100 years. Even to the extent that I talked to a PhD doctor here in Egypt who said that these smartphones and the social media, he said, have absolutely destroyed women in the Arab world today. He said to the extent that their families have absolutely no influence over them anymore. If one of them comes home and said, I don't like my husband, he's this or that, then they'll say, well, honey, you should stay with him. It's not that big a deal. She'll be like, no, I'm going to divorce him. And so families all over the Arab world are just being destroyed because women just think that they should just be able to do whatever they want to do anytime. And once again, the idea here is that it's pitting natural groups of people that should be attracted to each other against each other. So men and women should get along just fine. They're naturally attracted to each other, but it's to make one hate the other and make the other want to be like the other. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that you'll find men dressed like women and women dressed like men. And he said they're cursed by Allah. They have Allah's latna on them because of the fitna they'll cause. Because it leads to cross-dressing, leads to homosexuality. Homosexuality leads to disease. So the point I'm trying to make here is that these things are all happening right in front of our faces, and it doesn't take a wild imagination to see that the Prophet said these things very clearly to us. Okay, so let me, any questions about all that? Okay.
Sheikh, I actually did have one question.
Sure.
Actually, I could probably save it for the end. It's regarding something we talked about earlier.
Okay. All right. Do you guys want to wait till next week to do the one on Isa? It might take about a half hour to get through.
Yeah, it's probably for the best.
Okay. I figured it was around this time of year is a good time to talk about Jesus. I will recommend, I'm going to start posting videos on the chat from my teacher, Sheikh Omar Baloch, because he teaches the same subjects. He recently did one on Christmas, the origins of Christmas, and it's so fascinating what he discovered. Basically, he discovered that Santa Claus traces his origins to a pagan deity called Odin, which you may know from the Marvel superheroes series. But Odin is actually a one-eyed man, right, who's the god of death and destruction, who apparently flies all over the world, right? Originally carried by shayateen, which in the literal sense, it's flying serpents, right? But we all know serpents don't fly and they don't have hands and feet. But he flies all over the world, right, collecting knowledge. Mm-hmm. And he has one eye. And where does this emerge from? It emerges from the culture of the Northern European and Western European people, who are the what? People who were influenced by Gog and Magog. So the one-eyed man, right, influenced by Gog and Magog, eventually creates what we call Santa Claus Christianity, which is what we see in America and what we see influencing so much of the Christian world today. Christianity used to despise Christmas, and you guys probably don't know that. Like the Puritans in England, they actually banned the Christian holiday in America for about 20 years because they knew it was a pagan holiday. The most important holiday in Christianity, guys, is Easter, where they celebrate Jesus coming back to life after the crucifixion. In Christianity, there's no holiday supposed to be greater than that one. The birth of Jesus being celebrated as a holiday has nothing to do with Santa Claus. Nothing to do with Christmas trees, nothing to do with mistletoe, nothing to do with reindeer. Vaguely has something to do with giving presents because people brought gifts to Jesus's birth. But it's now just become a total materialistic holiday where Jesus is not even like important. He's secondary at best. And all you have to do is ask the average Christian child, what's so exciting for you about Christmas? And they're going to tell you presents. They're not going to tell you that Jesus was born and he's their savior, right? That's very secondary. But what I wanted to say all about that is that this is Dajjal's Christianity, okay? And unfortunately, we have Dajjal's Islam. And you guys should be very aware, or be very keen to look out for Dajjal's Islam. Dajjal's Islam is the one that turns Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr into Christmas, where it's just all about gifts. And if everyone doesn't get a present, they get really mad at each other. There's 2 days left of Ramadan, but we've already agreed the 27th is the Laylatul Qadr, even though we don't know if it is or not. And so we spend the last 2 nights of Ramadan shopping for presents, when it should be 2 more nights to beg Allah to forgive us in Taraweeh prayer and in Tahajjud, right? In other words, Ramadan, which is a holiday that used to be about fasting, is a month-long feast. Every single night of Ramadan is cakes and different meats, and as one sheikh said, a group of women will sit around the table for 4 or 5 hours rolling up mahshi and waraq al-inab, right? So a month that's supposed to be about you returning to Allah's Quran and abstaining from food and drink and eating as little as you can is inverted. So we have Santa Claus Christianity, and then we have Santa Claus Islam. And we don't even realize it. We don't even realize that even amongst people that we think are practicing a religion are actually following Dajjal. And they don't know it. And so when the Prophet ﷺ said he's the greatest fitna, it's once again because he will attack everything, every single thing, from the monetary system to the political system, to men and women and their family relationships, to children, to he'll attack your eyes, he'll attack your ears, he'll attack your health. Let me just give you an example of what I mean, just so you can fully understand this. And I'm sorry if I'm going on a rant, but this subject is really important. So organic apple, okay, not vinegar. Organic apple, okay. Now look, this is an organic apple, okay. Now I'll explain what that means in a second, okay. And then we're going to look up, right, conventional apple. Do you guys see any difference? See any difference? So this was your conventional.
You got green apples here, right?
No, I'm just saying, do you see any difference in these apples? Does one look different than the other? This is a conventional apple, and this is a organic apple. See any differences?
Hardly.
Hardly any, okay? Because you don't see the difference. But I'm about to explain to you what the difference is, okay? What does organic mean? Look at this little chart over here so you can understand. Organic fruits and vegetables have not been raised in raw sewage. They have not been genetically modified. They have not been sprayed with synthetic fertilizers, irradiated with radiation, or had synthetic pesticides used on them. Okay? But conventional, you can assume one or all 5 of these things have been done to create that apple. Radiation, synthetic fertilizer, synthetic pesticides, genetic modification, and raw sewage. And by the way, I'm not anti-science, guys. Genetic modification is not the same thing as natural selection. Natural selection is where you take an apple an orchard of apple trees, and this one in the corner over here always makes really big, fat, juicy apples. They're fatter and more juicy and more tasty than the rest of the orchard. So that tree, you take all the seeds from it and you plant a new orchard, but just from that particular lineage, so that you have an entire orchard now of this particular type. Right? And you always keep taking the best tree from every orchard and planting its seeds so that you can create an orchard that has just only the best tasting, most beautiful apples. That's natural selection. That's life. Genetic modification is not the same thing. And don't let anybody get it twisted for you. Genetic modification is where you go in the DNA strain of a plant and you alter it by adding DNA from other plants and animals into it to permanently alter it. You're not changing the traits of the apple, like turning some on and turning some off so that it grows bigger or more red or more green. You're permanently altering that thing so that it's nothing like it was before. So you can put an organic apple next to a conventional apple and you can look at it and you can bite into it and you're not going to notice any difference. But what you aren't going to realize is that when you ate that apple, you've now eaten synthetic pesticides, raw sewage, radiation, and synthetic fertilizers. And it's possibly genetically modified, which means your digestive system may not even know how to process it. That's what Dajjal is, guys. If you really want to understand the deception that's happening to you, is that your eyes and your ears are being tricked in the last age. Okay? The woman will look at you like you're crazy. What do you mean I don't have clothes on? I'm wearing, don't you see these leggings I have on? And you're like stuck for a while. I can't even look at you. You know what I mean? Because you're naked. You know? But she's so brainwashed, she can't see it. She can't see it. Do you understand? The more and more you concentrate on these hadith, you're going to understand that it's a total deception. That's what Dajjal means. Where what you see is not what it really is. What you hear is not what it really is. You know, you may be listening to one of these musicians that I mentioned. You're like, this is really good music, right? But what's the message that it's putting across to you? If a person is listening and reading the books of Aleister Crowley, who was a Satanist, who didn't believe in a God, who believed in disobeying all of God's laws, like what kind of message do you think a rock band who plays this kind of music is sending into your mind? What do you think the intent behind their music is, right? Even if it sounds good and pleasing to your ears, sounds nice. But what do you think they're trying to do to you? They're trying to get you to be like them. Their audience is going to be people who want to be like them. Rebellious. Rebellious against who? Rebellious against God. So the more and more you study the quote unquote minor signs, you're going to see these things are all related to Dajjal. They're all tools he's using against us. Even I'll give you an example. There's a hadith. I wish I had it uploaded. I would show it to you. But the Prophet ﷺ said time will begin to move faster, to an extent where a year will appear like a month like a week like a day like an hour like the time it takes to spark a fire. And you ask anybody today, do you feel like time is moving faster and faster? Everyone says yes. Like I feel like like this last month went by like a week. I feel like last year went by like a month. Why do you think that's happening to people? Is time actually going faster? No. The time today is the same as time was yesterday.
The screens.
Well, not only that, I'm going to explain to you guys what's happened. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in this world naturally occurring things to let you know time. And the number one thing he put into this world was the moon. The moon is how you determine months. You'll find Allah speaking very harshly against the mushrikeen in Surah At-Tawbah about changing the calendar. What they used to do is they used to, every 3 years, the Arabs would add an extra month to the calendar to make it the lunar calendar line up with the solar calendar. Because, you know, the lunar calendar is about 11 days shorter than the solar calendar every year. That's why Ramadan is always moving every year backwards, like a week or a week and a half. So they would intentionally put an extra 13th month every 3 years in order to keep the lunar calendar and solar calendar basically in alignment with each other. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala criticizes them very harshly in the Quran for doing that. Now, one might argue, well, like, what's the big deal? Because Allah put natural things in this world to allow you to experience time the way He created it. And when you disconnect from these natural things, it allows you, or it causes you to experience time in a different way. So what did Dajjal do, which is very fascinating, is we'll look up Gregorian calendar. Okay. So Pope Gregory, around 1582, Dajjal is already well within Western civilization by then. He decides to change the calendar. So most of the world has been going by a lunar calendar for most of history. Okay. But a lunar calendar makes it where some people have a different experience of a month than others. So for example, I might see the crescent in America, 3 days ago, but you might see it in Japan a day after me. So our months don't always line up exactly, and that's okay. Allah didn't create the whole world to have the same time. Okay? Just depends on where you are in the world. But a month is always either 29 or 30 days. It cannot ever be 31 days, and it cannot ever be 28 days. It's impossible if you go by the moon, and particularly citing the moon. When Pope Gregory comes along and he says, no, a month. Notice it even has the word moon in it. A month, can have 31 days sometimes. Or sometimes it can have 28 days, but every fourth year we'll add a day and make it a 29-day month. He played with the calendar. And Muslims, like donkeys, with the rest of the world, followed along and did the same thing. Now today you can finally find a Muslim who even knows what Islamic month they're in, unless it's Ramadan. This is like the only month we care about. Some people care about Dhul Hijjah because it's the time of Hajj. The rest of the year, like if I asked you guys today, what month are we in? You don't have to answer. What Islamic month are we in? When was the moon sighted last? If you know, that's good. If you don't, that's a bad sign, because you're disconnected from the moon. And that's why you're experiencing time moving faster and faster. Now, why would Dajjal want to do that to you? Why does Dajjal want you disconnected from time? Because Dajjal can't rule over a world in which different peoples are experiencing a month on different days. He has to have a universal system of time. In fact, the time system we all go by today, which is based off Greenwich Mean Time. Look at this up. It's very fascinating. Greenwich Mean Time. Okay. Is a time system based on everything starting in Britain. And the whole rest of the world's time is calculated based on the time it is in Greenwich Mean Britain. Where did Dajjal begin his mission, guys? I've been drilling this home since the very beginning. He began it in Britain. So Greenwich Mean Time, this particular time zone is 000. Okay, all the rest of the time zones in the world are based off of it. In other words, England is made the center of the world, basically. And this universal system of time is now accepted by all of mankind. The Gregorian calendar now accepted by all of mankind. Why do you think Britain went all over the world to conquer the world? Because Britain wanted to change everything. Britain wanted to get the entire world on one economic system, one system of time, one system of holidays, one system of everything. They wanted a world which the Antichrist could come and rule over easily. And that's what they've been doing since the very beginning. And they eventually transferred their power over to the United States, and eventually the United States will transfer all of its power over to Israel, which it's already doing. That's why most of the senators in Congress today, or many of them, I won't say most, are actually dual American Israeli citizens. Now imagine that. Does any other nation in the world allow you to be a leader of the government when you have a dual national allegiance? You have allegiance to that country, but you have an allegiance to another foreign country? I mean, this is madness. But in the United States, it's perfectly okay. You can be an Israeli citizen.
You're serious,
Yeah.
Chef? They have
Yeah,
Israeli passports?
look, I'll just show it to you. I want you to see it. Dual Israeli American Citizenship Congress. Or I'm sorry, yeah. Let's see. Where is it? Maybe it's,
Anti-Semitic.
well, that's when you're not allowed to ask questions. Okay. Trying to find it. Who is? There is a list on the internet somewhere that shows you all of the. Okay. So, why is this possible? I'll explain to you why. So, if you're a Jew, meaning your mother was Jewish, you have the right to be an Israeli citizen. Okay, it's called the right of return. So, if you were born in the United States, but your mother was Jewish, you have the right to travel to Israel and get a passport, basically. Okay? And the United States doesn't hold that against you, because they say that this is your birthright. This is your, Israel is your home for your religious tradition and everything. So you have an incredibly, and look at all these people who were Jewish throughout history in American politics. Some of them still in American politics today. All of these people, if they want, can go and become citizens of Israel. Now, have they or have they not? I don't know. There is a list that exists somewhere. I just don't have it up on the screen for you guys to see. But the point I'm trying to make is any of these people could be dual Israeli citizens and American citizens. It's very fascinating. Look up the right of return. So gradually you can see how America is shifting its power over to Israel. Okay. And that, once again, is to make Israel the ruling state in the world. Okay, if you want to understand why this pandemic is happening, why no one gets the flu anymore, no one gets pneumonia anymore, everybody just must have COVID, right? So why do we have to lock everything down because of this disease that only kills, at its worst, 1 out of 100 people, and that's particularly if you have bad health or elderly. But if you're less than 18 years old, it's like 99.9999999% survive it. Such a terrible illness. 80% of people don't even have symptoms, that you have to be tested for it to even know you have it. If you guys want to know what's going on right now, they're trying to collapse the economies of the European and Western worlds, because they're trying to eventually give all of the economic power over to Israel. Okay? This pandemic is a lie. It's garbage. It's not true. If there is a disease at all, it's extremely weak, and it's being used for several reasons. But the main thing is to collapse the economies of the world, particularly the ones in the West.
Like, I would say that the pandemic is real, as in there is like a virus, but it's just man-made, and like there is an agenda behind. Plus, the media is like bombarding us with, scaring them to death about, like, here in Lebanon, like people are so scared, like it's crazy. Like but I mean, some people, like older people, have died. So, but yeah, it's like a huge overreaction.
I'll be honest with you. I'm leaning more and more towards that there is actually no illness at all.
Really? How so?
Let me explain to you something. So you guys ever heard of the placebo effect? The placebo effect?
Yeah, where they tell you you have something when you don't have it, and then you believe you have it.
So the placebo effect is when you're testing a medication, for example. You can take a group of 10 people who have diabetes, okay, or just any illness, and you say, I'm going to give you a medicine that's going to help your diabetes. And you give 5 of them the medicine you're trying to test, and you give 5 of them what's called a placebo, which is basically a water pill, a pill with nothing in it, but it looks like all the other pills. And so once you give the 10 patients the medicine and the placebo, you measure their reactions. And inevitably, in every single trial, you'll find people who were given the placebo who will report having side effects, positive or negative, doesn't matter, because of what they believe is happening to them. Well, guess what? The same is true for the opposite. If you take a group of 10 people and you say, we're going to infect you with a disease, and you give 5 people the infection, and then the other 5 people you give a placebo, you will inevitably find the same reaction, that a certain percentage of the people that got the placebo will actually get sick. Guys, when the media is telling you every single day that 100,000 people have been affected, another 1,000 people have died, blah, 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 blah. This spread through people's breath. They're drilling into people's minds that there is a severely contagious sickness everywhere in the world today. And there's nowhere that it isn't. Yeah, guys, I can tell you, I'm in Egypt today. Almost nobody here wears a mask. There's no social distancing. There's no hand sanitizer. They don't even do lockdowns here anymore. They never did a lockdown actually here. They just did a curfew during Ramadan, basically. And this should be the most infected population on Earth, especially considering the sanitation here is not even close to what it is in the West. But yet you go to the West and you find masks everywhere, hand sanitizer everywhere, social distancing everywhere, lockdowns everywhere, and they're the most infected countries in the world. And that doesn't make any sense unless you realize they're the most brainwashed countries in the world, that this virus is infecting them. And that a certain percentage of the population, through the placebo effect, actually believes that they're getting sick, and they're getting sick because of it. That's what I actually think is going on. I don't think there actually is a virus. However, could there be one? Yes, I leave open the possibility. But whatever is happening, because I tend to look at things in the terms of Dajjal is doing this. So what does Dajjal always do? He does a deception, a lie. In other words, it's not real what he's doing. It only appears to be real. And what's so fascinating is, what is this thing called? It's called the coronavirus. The corona is your crown, meaning it's in your head. That band Tool that I told you about, I mean, just read their lyrics, okay? They came out with an album last year, okay? I want you to read the lyrics to their song. It's very fascinating. Tool, lyric, fear. They have an album that they put out called Fear Inoculum, meaning you're being injected with fear. Now, this came out last year in 2019. Remember, this is a band I showed you that practices the occult and contacts the Dajjal. Now, read the lyrics to this song and tell me that this doesn't sound exactly like what you're living right now. Immunity long overdue. Contagion, I exhale you. Naive, I open up to you. Venom and mania. Now contagion, I exhale you. Deceiver says, he says, you belong to me. You don't want to breathe the light of the others. Fear the light. Fear the breath. Fear others for eternity. But I hear them now inhale the clarity. Hear the venom of what I say inoculated. Bless this immunity, bless this immunity, bless this immunity. exhale, expel, recast my tale, weave my allegorical elegy, I think so, enumerate. Look at this. All that I am to do, calculating steps away from you. Guys, this is all talking about vaccines. This is talking about breathing in and out a contagion. This is talking about social distancing. This guy, I guarantee you, is in contact with shayateen who are part of all this.
Yeah, not gonna lie, that sounds terrifyingly accurate and relevant.
Right.
When
And
did
he
the
wrote,
song come out?
it came out last year.
Like,
Last year in 2019. And I showed you this band contacting Dajjal. So I'm telling you guys, this, and he calls the album that they came out with Fear Inoculum. Inoculum is when you're infected with a virus. And notice the first word, fear inoculum. You're being injected with fear, but it's not real. Notice how he keeps saying in it, but the deceiver says. Who's the deceiver here?
Joe.
He doesn't name him. Bless this immunity. Guys, you're already immune to it. Notice how none of these doctors who are telling you to be afraid of this virus will tell you to take vitamin D, to take vitamin C, to get exercise, to go get in the sun, to have good relationships with your family and friends. All of those things are going to boost your immune system. But there's no mention of immune system. It's all masks, hand sanitizer, distancing, vaccines. This is the only, as if those are the only possible solutions to dealing with a virus. That's incredibly weak, by the way. If there is a virus at all, guys, it's so incredibly weak, it's unbelievable. But the placebo effect is not a joke, guys. It's very real. You trick people into believing something is happening to them that's not really happening to them. And that sounds just like Dajjal to me. So we'll end here tonight. I've exposed you guys to a lot of interesting things. Our last lesson this year will be on Isa alayhi salatu Islam. He's the most major of all the signs that'll be occurring. So do you all have any questions, comments, or concerns? I seem to have scared away one of you.
I think he may have lost connection. I'm not sure. I think he was cutting out. But yes, Sheikh, I do have one question. This is in regards to really just like all the things we've talked to. I guess I'll just ask it. So in terms of all the, for example, all the prophecies you mentioned, such as the naked barefoot Bedouins constructing to build tall buildings, I've brought some of these arguments to Christians and atheists and even some older Muslim brothers that I've recently gone back into contact with. And usually most of the counter arguments I hear are that some of these prophecies are either way too broad and that it's not really a legitimate prophecy, or that they have happened in the past. And so it's like it could apply to any time period. And so like one specific example is that the prophecy that I told them about the construction of the tall buildings, like that, all that stuff could have happened during the Islamic Golden Age. And so therefore it's like, you know, it could happen at any time, so it's not really a prophecy. The only thing that I could think of to like respond to that, and I want like your input on whether or not it's right, or maybe it's another input, is that what makes this a prophecy is that it's happening now in far more abundance than it ever did in the past. All of these prophecies, such as women dressing and appearing naked, fornication like donkeys in the public eye, all these things. So do you think that's right, or is there another reason?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, to say that any building today compares to a building in the past, you're a lunatic. I mean, there's no buildings like Burj Khalifa or the Clock Tower in Mecca or the One World Trade Center in New York. These buildings are well beyond the size and scope of any building that the Muslims built in the past. Like they're not even close. It's not even remotely close.
Any random apartment building anywhere today is like a skyscraper compared to older buildings.
No, yeah, but like I think the thing is,
well,
like,
no, and I want you to point out there are some literal things you can show them. Like for example, and I'll just show this real quick in Hamza Yusuf's presentation. He mentions a very specific prophecy that did not happen, and that is that the buildings will surpass the mountaintops of Mecca.
أماكنها. The end of time won't come until you see mountains removed from their places. When I was in
That didn't
Mecca,
happen during the time until recently. When the Quraysh, he said the Quraysh will remove the mountains of Mecca. That's happening right now. To expand Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, they're literally bulldozing whole mountains, just blowing them up into dust and moving them out to the desert so that there's more flat surface to pray on.
there's mountains have been removed from Mecca. Qu'an, one of the mountains that's known upon people in a public beach having sexual intercourse. In a public beach on the Arabian Peninsula. I'm not making this up. This is
I'm trying to
seeing signs of our Prophet ﷺ. He told
here it
us
is.
that you will see the buildings of Mecca reach the mountaintops. The buildings of Mecca will reach the mountaintops. And this is happening in our lifetime. When I first went to Mecca, there were no buildings even close to the tops of the mountains of Mecca. And now it's filled with buildings that are beginning to reach the mountaintops. I was on one of the tallest mountains in Mecca.
That's one of the tallest mountains in Mecca on the left of your screen. And look, the Burj Khalifa the clock tower is taller than it. That clock tower is the biggest sign for every Muslim that I've ever seen. When you first see it, it scares you to death. Like you immediately see something wrong. I didn't know about this building when I made Umrah in 2012. I knew nothing about this building. And all of a sudden I got to Mecca, and as opposed to seeing the Kaaba and being blown away by it, I was just looking up at this building like, what is this evil thing? You know? And my Arabic teacher here in Egypt, she said the same thing to me when she went there. She said that immediately, like, just terrible feeling went into her heart when she saw this building.
I concur, Sheikh. I was there too, and it is really like it takes up everything. Like it's just there. Like you can't not pay attention to it.
Do you think it takes away from the significance of the Kaaba itself, seeing as how both structures are?
Bingo.
Yeah.
It's there to replace it, to be the thing that you care the most about. That's why it lights up at night. It's got this. And what is the clock? Where does the clock tower come from? It comes from Britain. Britain has Big Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, where does Dajjal? Guys, let me tell you something. There's a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, I saw a man making tawaf around the Kaaba, and that man was Dajjal. So we all know Dajjal can't come into Mecca. So how do we resolve this? His tools are there. So right outside the Mataf in Mecca is McDonald's, KFC, cigarettes, the clock tower. It's all there. It's all there right in Mecca for you to see with your own eyes. The evil is there. And of course, they got the smartphones and the pornography too. Even one of my friends, he's a sheikh, he was like, but I thought pornography was banned in these countries. Do you know what? I met a president of one of my, the masajid that I gave a khutbah at. He told me he went to school at one of the best schools in Saudi Arabia, okay, in the 1980s. And he said that he had never heard of pornography until he got on the school bus one day and they were passing around pornographic magazines on a school bus at a school in Saudi Arabia in the 1980s. So this stuff is everywhere. And there are people, I guarantee you today, making Hajj in Mecca looking at pornography on their cell phones. Like that's the level that we've gotten to as far as like just sinfulness in our ummah today.
You know, Sheikh, right there, what you just now said, I remember reading a article on this website called Islam QA, and his brother said that he was doing Hajj, and on one of the 3 nights of Minna, he found himself, astaghfirullah, masturbating, and so he was scared that his entire Hajj was going to be invalid. And just like you said, the fact that his phone was right there, pornography was just right there at the ready, on the most like spiritual things a Muslim could do, you know, it's just sad.
Not only that, but you'll find people making i'tikaf in the masjid during Ramadan on their computers. Like i'tikaf is supposed to be a time when you totally disengage from everything. You're just in a tent in the masjid all day, every day, praying, reading Quran, making dhikr. You don't do anything else. But you'll find people that are like I knew a brother, he made itikaf in Ramadan for all 30 days. But the whole time he's on the phone, internet, what is this? You see, Dajjal's religion, and he's going to infect all the religions, is going to be one absolutely devoid of the original meaning. He's going to take what you had and corrupt it. So he takes the Hajj pilgrimage, but he gives you the pornography in it. He gives you itikaf, but you've got your internet to distract you from Allah. He gives you Ramadan, but you make every night into a feast. You know, like literally the level of fasad in all aspects of life today is unprecedented, unbelievable. But you have to sit and reflect and think about what's going on to understand it. It doesn't always obviously come out to you. But this one, just to answer your original question, this is a great one to show people. There were no buildings that even got close to the mountaintops of Mecca until after the year 2000. Now they're everywhere. So you can show people real things that are happening. As far as the argument that some of these things have happened in the past to some extent, I would say yes. I mean, there's a very clear hadith that mentions that at one point during the life of the Prophet, all of Mecca was filled with smoke. And so someone suggested that this is the smoke mentioned in Surah Al-Dukhan. But my argument against that would be that the 10 signs are meant to be happening together. So if you're going to say that the Dukhan happened in the life of the Prophet, well, then where was Dajjal? Where was Ya'juj and Ma'juj? Where's the descent of Isa? You know, unless you're going to go with my argument that I'm making, which is that these major signs have actually been happening, but manifesting themselves slowly throughout history, with the exception of a few. So like the landslides, the 3 landslides, that's going to be something that happens like towards the end of the last age. The descent of Isa doesn't happen until after Dajjal, right? But yeah, the women dressed in naked. I mean, I don't see how anyone can't see that one. I mean, that one is so obvious to me. I don't even understand why someone can't see that one.
Even for that one, you mentioned the leggings, and I think I would go even further beyond that. Is I remember like there was this advertisement that came up about like condoms or something, and I mean FYI, that's just like a random advertisement. I don't know why I got it. But it was basically, it showed like just to show how the material that in the condom was so light that you wouldn't even feel it. The guy that was like promoting it was wearing this silky kind of like robe that was so light you could practically see his skin.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget there was this music video award ceremony, and this singer lady came out wearing leggings, but they were the exact same color as her skin. So it literally looked like she was totally naked.
And even with those skin tight clothes, if you even get like a little bit of water on it, you could literally see your.
Oh yeah, they're super thin, thin. I mean, leggings are meant to be see-through anyway. You know, but you know, at the end of the day, guys, and it's like I think I said this to Adi one time about what you're doing by calling attention to these hadiths is you're becoming a da'i. You're trying to call your people to the knowledge of Allah and His Messenger. And inevitably in da'wah, you have to understand the concept of rejection. Anyone who reads the Quran, I mean, there's almost not a single page of the Quran that doesn't talk about rejection. We're despite the fact the Prophet was such an honest guy and had all the signs around him to prove who he was, they still rejected him. Most people rejected him. So if the masjid uncles and aunties and your friends are rejecting this, you know, don't get frustrated. Just say, you know, either A, these people need more time to understand this subject, or B, Allah has just sealed their hearts. You know, He doesn't want them to see this. And that's a bad sign. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's a sign. And I'll tell you what the real problem is. It's like, you know, you can show people the Twin Towers falling, okay? Twin Towers falling, okay? I mean, you can just show them this, okay?
Take two. Take 2 and 2, 1. This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the firemen assembled here, the police officers, FBI agents, and
I'm sure if this is going to show it or not. Well, this video sucks. Looking for like, let's see.
Just
Okay.
before 10 a.m., a call comes
So you see a
through
burning
from the
building,
president.
and you think, well, that's a steel frame and concrete structure.
Looked around, and I could see that the desk
And then,
in front of me was
yeah,
shaking.
here we go.
Didn't know what that was.
And then you see it crumbling into dust. And no matter how many times you show this video to someone and you say, that was a controlled demolition, because fires at the top of the building don't cause a building to crumble into dust when it is made of steel and concrete. That's an explosion. It's a clear and obvious explosion. But this is why, guys, I'm going to tell you people won't accept that explanation. Because it's too painful for them to recognize the truth. Even though you and I have on the same eyes and we're looking at the same screen, the one who rejects the truth is rejecting it because they know that if that's true, that if those buildings did not fall because of planes hitting them and fires, then that means they were lied to. And that they've been living a lie for 20 years now. And that they may have even supported the great evils that have been done all over the world because of who got blamed for that. And for them to accept that means that they were wrong and that they've actually hurt people. And that's too painful for them to realize. And so they reject it. The same thing the Quraysh did. I mean, guys, monotheism makes perfect sense. It is plain and clear and obvious that idols don't do anything for you. They don't give you anything. They don't take anything away from you. But the Arabs knew that if we get rid of these idols, then no one will come to Hajj anymore. All of these Arab tribes, they won't come here anymore. And we live in a desert. What is Muhammad trying to do? He's going to destroy our economy. We won't be able to trade with these people anymore. They won't come here. There's only one God. If they don't worship that one God, they're going to go worship their gods. So they weren't rejecting the Prophet ﷺ's message because it didn't make sense. It makes perfect sense that this is a controlled demolition, guys. But it's the implications of that that prevent people from seeing the truth of it. And when you start trying to show people signs of the end of the world, guys, it's too painful for them to recognize that they're living in the end of the world. Because everyone has hopes. I want to get my 3-story house, and I want to have my new car, and I want to have grandkids, and I've got my 401k, and everyone's got this imaginary world in the future waiting for them that is not going to happen. And when you start telling them, no, guys, the major signs of the day of judgment are going to happen any day now, that means that all of their hopes and dreams are wasted. And that they need to start readjusting their future plans for a world that's going to be very different than the one they imagined for themselves. And it's too painful for them to accept that. Just like now, if you try to go to people anywhere in the United States and tell them that the coronavirus really isn't as bad as the TV told them it was, they're already in a mask. They've already shut their businesses down. They've lost millions of dollars or hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. They've invested so much emotional energy into this. Maybe even their mom died in a hospital and they didn't go visit them because there were restrictions. And it's just so painful for them to admit that this isn't what they were told it was. They can't do it because it means so much wrong has been done and they agreed to that wrong and they were deceived. And that's the problem you deal with in dawah. It's not that what you're saying doesn't make sense. It's that people don't want to accept it. It's too painful. You guys still there?
Yep.
All right, we should go ahead and end then. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Allahumma, may Allah bless us and keep us knowledgeable of the subjects we're learning. Stop. Come at it. Stop. I'll see you guys next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.